Today, we're going to compare the OnePlus Open versus the iPhone 15 Pro. For HDR, it seems like the iPhone is more concentrated with the highlights, so it is exposed pretty well. So you will notice in the shadows is just a bit darker, making the whole image darker. Versus the OnePlus Open, it feels like it's prioritizing on the shadows, so you can see more in the shadows is a bit brighter. So it depends on which one you prefer. Some people like that darker, contrastier look, or they like that HDR look where everything looks pretty exposed. For the colors, it looks like the OnePlus is leaning towards the coolish side, whereas on the iPhone, it's much warmer, especially when the sun is hitting on the object. For the next thing is the telephoto lens, which is pretty obvious that the OnePlus has a max zoom of 120x, so for the most part, those pictures would come out looking cleaner, although around 3x to 6x they look pretty identical, especially if you're just showing them off to your friends from your phone. But at max zoom at 15x on an iPhone, clearly there's no competition. During daytime, the iPhone 15 Pro does look more digitized, and during nighttime you can tell there's a lot more noise and artifacts. So for a foldable phone, the telephoto range is really impressive and it feels like I'm not missing out. So if you know that you will be zooming in a lot, then the OnePlus Open will be the better camera for you. When you're indoors, the colors are also different as well. So the iPhone has more saturation, it has some contrast. So when you're taking pictures of food, those tend to pop out a lot more on the iPhone, and it does look more delicious. Now when you are in really low light situations, the OnePlus Open do take a bit longer just to snap a picture. And you do have to hold your hand pretty still because you will see some pictures coming out pretty blurry, and that can be an issue when it's wintertime or you're just in a cold place and you can't really stop shaking your hands because you're just shivering. But for nighttime photos, they do pretty well, especially with the wide camera lens. But when you start to zoom in, especially at 15x obviously, the OnePlus Open is a lot cleaner. Not unless you keep your hands pretty still, because obviously mine came out pretty blurry. It also applies to the ultra wide as well. You can clearly see it's not as clear as the iPhone. So for nighttime photography, that's just something you have to consider if you're planning to purchase the OnePlus Open. Selfies, I'm gonna give it to the OnePlus Open since you can use the back camera to take higher quality selfies, which you can clearly tell with the blurrier background on the OnePlus Open. And you can use the ultra wide angle to take group selfies too. You can still use the front camera on the OnePlus Open both on the outside and inside, and they both do pretty good. But of course, if you have the option to use the back camera, why not use the best one that gives you the best quality? Now I would avoid using the one inside the phone since I would have to use two hands and it looks pretty awkward. But taking a selfie with the front camera, I would use it just for a quick shot. For video on ultra wide, they seem pretty close to each other. The iPhone is just a bit cooler and the sun is a bit smaller, so I would say the highlights is a bit more controlled on the iPhone. For the wide camera, it feels like the iPhone just have more depth in the colors, and it seems like the iPhone is still pretty sensitive with the color shifting, which happens pretty quickly. And for this clip, pretty similar to the pictures where the highlights doesn't seem like it's almost clipping, so I guess that is one big strength on the iPhone. You can shoot 3x on both of these phones, and during daytime they both look pretty good. Of course, the colors are just a little bit different. Now for max zoom on the iPhone, you can go up to 9x versus the 20x on the OnePlus Open. Even though it's not super clean, it's still nice to have that big of a range. Now for the ultra wide during nighttime, it's obvious the iPhone is the winner, and I would say this is the weakest point on the OnePlus Open is shooting ultra wide video, so I would highly suggest not to use this lens during nighttime. For the wide lens, it is obviously much better, and it looks like for this clip, the HDR or the highlights seems to be more controlled on the OnePlus. Now for the stabilization, I do like how smooth the iPhone is versus the OnePlus. As I'm panning around, those pans feels a bit jerky or just too robotic to me, and it feels like I can see more micro jitters, so the overall video quality, it just looks a bit blurry. So I'm gonna give low light video to the iPhone, but the OnePlus is still pretty good overall. So that is the comparison between these two phones, and I feel like for a foldable phone, this is probably one of the best camera modules you can get so far. So let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.